For joining us. What is your reaction to the White House's confirmation of 25% tariffs against your country?
Well, look, I think President Trump probably thinks that we in Canada will cave in, but we are going to stand up to a bully. We're not going to back down. We're united, and we will retaliate.
And the effect of this on the US and on Canada economically?
Well, ultimately, the steps that the president is taking against Canada, contemplating, I guess, as well against Mexico, China, others, and threatening the world are going to rebound negatively on the United States. They're going to hit growth. They're going to move up inflation. They're going to raise interest rates. They're going to damage the U.S.'s reputation around the world. I mean, let's be absolutely clear. This is the second time in less than 10 years, less than 8 years, that the United States has, in effect, ripped up a trade agreement with its closest trading partner that it negotiated in good faith.
And there's no doubt from your perspective that that Mexico-Canada agreement, what used to be NAFTA, has been ripped up tonight.
Well, it's the U.S. is violating it. Listen, I'll speak from the perspective of Canada. The justification, purported justification for these tariffs is the cross-border movement of fentanyl and illegal immigrants. And just to compare, and you will have heard this before, but it bears repeating, that in both cases, if you compare Canada relative to Mexico, the proportions are less than 1% of illegal drugs, by the way, that are all driven across the border by Americans. In terms of the seizures that we've seen, less than 1% that crosses the southern border, and it's similar numbers, less than 1% in terms of legal immigrants. There is no national security justification for this. It's the purported justification. Justice in the United States moves slowly through the courts, but this is a violation of the trade agreement.
But it's pretty clear that the US president has a bit of a fixation on Canada and on the trade deficit that is run. He thinks that America's being ripped off, although that's not the reason he's giving tonight.
Well, yes, you've just shifted the justification, as the president sometimes does. The United States runs a deficit with Canada only because of energy, because of U.S. imports, largely of oil, and as well as electricity. So that's what runs a deficit versus Canada, where that's not being ripped off. In fact, we sell that energy, particularly the oil, at a discount to world prices to Americans. So perhaps we should ask for that subsidy back.
I mean, it's pretty clear that he thinks your country can be pushed around.
We can.
And you talked about retaliation. You want to be Prime Minister in weeks. What does that look like?
Well, the first thing is we have a lot of cards. We're keeping them close to our chests. We'll start playing a few. Those decisions are for the current government. I've been in close contact with our main negotiators, our foreign affairs minister, our finance minister, who've been in Washington, our public safety minister has also been down. We will take steps. I think it's reasonable to expect in the immediate term that we will match dollar for dollar the U.S. tariffs. We will target our tariffs against those goods and services that will most affect the United States and least affect Canada. But to be clear, this will have an impact on the Canadian economy, and that impact will be felt more quickly and to a greater extent than the U.S. But Canadians are in no mood to make any concessions here. This is entirely unjustified. And we have many, many other options that we don't want to deploy, but we will if we have to.
Well, could you imagine, for example, trying to target the Trump circle, perhaps tariffing Tesla's electricity, energy, potash, for example?
We have a deep strategic relationship that's been violated. As I said a moment ago, it is sensible in a negotiation to target our measures where they have the greatest impact to those who are making the decisions. So all options are on the table in that respect. The second thing I'd say, though, I'd underscore that what we are going to do, or at least what we will do if I'm successful and am Prime Minister by the middle of March, is to reinforce our economy, reinforce growth in our economy with a series of major measures. I'd remind, we're a AAA country. We have a lot of resources, fiscal resources in the country. We have tremendous resources, full stop. And we actually have a lot more in common with a lot of other major economies around the world. And over time, we will look to diversify.